Welcome back. I'm Rebekah.
And I'm Gabe, and welcome to another episode of Rhythms for Life. And today we're so excited to have a beautiful couple with us, people you're going to get to know really well in the next few minutes.
I mean, you already know them, but you're going to really get to know them.
Yeah, so Hillary Scott, who many know as one of the lead vocalists for Lady A, is with us today with her husband, Chris Tyrrell, who also amazing musician, drummer, but also very talented in the world of therapy, healing, helping people work through their journey. So this is going to be such an
Awesome
important...
dad. Awesome Girl dad.
Mainly girl dad.
Girl
yeah.
dad.
Mainly
Okay.
girl dad.
Which explains everything.
That's
why
why
you're so
I'm in the mental health space
emotionally.
is because I'm surrounded
Yes.
by like beautiful daughters.
Yeah.
Well, we love that you guys have become friends over these years. We've lived now in the same town for a decade, and it's been fun to just get to know the two of you outside of probably what most people see, which is the stage side, the music side, the big lights. And yet we've been able to take a few steps behind that, where we get together as couples, we get to have deeper conversations about your own journeys. And I know we've been so encouraged to just hear all the beautiful ways that you guys in your marriage love and honor one another. But the way you've been fighting for your marriage and fighting for healing and health and strength and vitality, which you'd have to have with the type of life, career demands, expectations that so many people have. And so thank you for being willing to open up and have some conversations about that today.
Yeah. Such a good title to have in a book. Fighting. So it got to be like it's a key word though. It's a key word though. Of like
Yeah, I think I was struck with meeting you in a group of women through Annie Downs actually in Colorado, and we like connected by the end of this weekend. At the end of the weekend, I was like, I really love her, and we're both from Nashville, and I don't know if it'll be weird if I like get her phone number, but what it was is about the both of you that people might not always know, but I think they spend 3 minutes, they do know, is that you just are the real deal, and you are as sincere, like in person and behind closed doors, and you let people in, and you invite us close, and we have had the joy of being in a community group with you guys now for 2 to 3 years, and I guess your first one ever, and we hadn't done a couples group in like 20 years, so for us, we were equally excited to like, let's do this. It's been joyful to laugh, to cry, to celebrate, to mourn, to grieve, and we've done that as couples in marriages, and I think honestly that's been what has bolstered us so much, even in this kind of newer season of our kids launching and figuring out what is this beyond the kids like leaving home and still having Kate and Joy with us. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, we feel honored that we get to sit at your feet, and y'all are, 10 plus years ahead of us in launching. I mean, there's so many reasons why we're so grateful that the Lord brought us together this way.
So how many years have you guys been married? Let's get to the beginning of this story.
13
years.
Okay,
Yeah.
13.
And another one on the way.
Yes. So we have a little girl, another girl coming in July. So yes,
It's awesome.
there's 3 of us sitting
Yes.
here right now.
It's cool.
I love it.
And you guys in your journey of marriage, I mean, it began with the career was firing. I mean, all cylinders. You've been with Lady A now for 20 years almost, and won Grammys. I mean, you've pursued that. And Chris, you jumped into that equation. You guys had been friends for a long time.
No, I want to know how you first
How
when you knew there were sparks, like what exactly?
Ooh.
I walked up to him in catering.
I was gonna say catering. That was the point.
We were on tour with Tim McGraw, and we were playing before Tim, and then Chris was drumming for the band that was playing before us, before Tim. And I walked up to him in catering, and because we had tried to connect to all, like, go hang out after a show a few weeks before.
Yes.
He'd put his number in my phone, and I had lost it. I didn't save it. And so it was totally.
I think it was
my
your
way
burner
into,
phone.
like-
I think you really gave me your burner phone. It was not the real.
But asking for his number and kind of asking for forgiveness for like losing his number was totally my entry into like trying to start.
Well, and I will give you props because you walked up to a table in catering. It's just like a lunchroom. I mean, we just have tables backstage, and it's usually a tent, and it's just as awkward because everyone just sits in their little clusters of a few people. So she came up not just to me at a table, it was me and my crew of my opening band guys.
Yeah.
And she just like walked straight up and said, "I've been a bad friend. I lost your number. I didn't save it. Could I have it?" I'm not. So I, at the one hand, I really loved it, and then the other hand, I simultaneously kind of leaned back and went, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna mess with you now because you just walked up to the table with my boys."
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly how I very politely / coyly played with you and said, I gave you a little grief. I gave you a little grief for like losing my number. Yeah.
But within 2 hours, we were texting. And then it was like, we just were friends. It was our friendship and for sure attraction and flirtation. But the friendship that we had really supernaturally established years before when we had just worshiped together with a couple of friends when we were in college. It was like, it was just so natural. And so I think we both really knew quickly. I knew quickly that you were my person.
Yeah, and being on the road, even though we didn't get a ton of quality time in the road touring sense, but we were just on buses going to the same place every night, so we'd be texting and calling and talking till all hours of the night, a few hundred yards apart on the road. But it was like, so we still, it was kind of distance, but also, we were in the same.
And it's like adult summer camp. It's like you work. I mean, my day is a little bit different than his day, just with setting up and, sound check. And then I go in to do my hair and makeup. But I mean, you have so many hours that you're not really doing anything until the real chunk of
Until the
showtime.
time, yeah.
And so we did have a lot of time to just talk and get to know each other and go deep quickly because
and boy, you better believe all of Tim's road guys and texts gave me so much grief of like, you're the little young punk drummer trying to date the artist, the only girl on the road, and she's the artist, and like I was immediately the little brother getting made fun of all the time, but it was great.
Yeah, they assumed you were trying to make this happen, and she
all
was
the
definitely not
assumptions.
interested.
and it was probably more the other way around. I was like, no,
I was
you're
like,
my
no,
guy.
I'm a professional.
That's fun.
Nope.
So how long until you kind of were like, we are a thing, we are an item, we want to be together, from that table walk up?
Probably like less than 2 months.
Yeah, maybe
Wow.
2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Because we really our technical, like what we would call like when we said we're dating
August
exclusively
24th.
was August 24th. But I think July we were for sure. I mean, I hadn't.
You were already making
August
out at that
24th.
point.
Yes, August 24th was where
He
she
actually
looked.
waited a long time to kiss me.
Okay.
Like a really long time.
That's good.
Hey, and props. First kiss was in London.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very romantic.
Yeah, you gotta wait for the right
That
time.
was in New York City.
Yeah.
So we win.
Global cities. Yeah, you do still win.
You say. You say.
Romantic London. No, but that was August was the date where you looked at me and she said, you need to properly ask me to be your girlfriend because we haven't actually defined this. And I was like, I thought we were already dating. And I didn't, So,
Yeah.
we were in
First
it by
of many
then.
lessons.
She was fighting
Relationships.
for us long before
Oh, there you go.
knew you'd actually have to fight.
She was already reading the manual on how to do it right. I was catching up.
So in marriage, of course, we all start out with these dreams, expectations, like this is going to be amazing. And we have those days, but we also have a lot of days where we start to learn about our partner and we learn things about ourselves that we had no idea were there, that we're just kind of camping and we'd covered them up maybe from a childhood or from our journey. And then they start to come out in marriage. And as people are going through our book, The Fight for Us, and they're learning about how this happens in their marriage, they start to get into this dysfunctional dance. They get used to it. They get comfortable in dysfunction. They grow further apart. And the way back is to start learning how to name our feelings, to really get honest with ourselves, reflect on our heart and what is really happening inside. I mean, I'm not just going to cover it up. And our spouse is the one person that can really walk with us through that journey. But a lot of people don't know how to do that. And I'm curious for you guys, where was it in this 13 years where you started to get to that moment where you're like, man, we're gonna have to go to this next level of getting to know each other? Did that happen early? Did it happen later?
I think for me, really quickly in our marriage, I kind of imploded really early on, and
How
in
early?
some like first year,
Wow.
couple months in.
Yeah.
So in some hindsight, in beauty and grace of God, that made it clear that this has nothing to do with our marriage, because I'm just imploding and I'm not treating her well. I'm not being faithful to her. I mean, straight away.
Yeah.
So that was very clearly not because of our marriage. It's not 20, 30 years in. Now I'm spinning out. Now it's because we aren't. It was like something else is happening here. There are things under the water here that is not about her because we just started. We
Did
just
that
got
shock
going.
you, like when it happened, or did you kind of see it coming?
No, it was very just I imploded, and it was a wake up call that I've now watched some of my friends have happen in their 40s and 50s. For some reason, I really am grateful for His grace in that being so early because it didn't have the same weight of children and family and work, and there were still just us in the midst of it. So we kind of were, I don't know if we were secluded from it in a sense, but we were kind of just good.
Yeah.
The collateral damage.
Yeah, it wasn't
the same.
it wasn't the same, but it all landed on her of just like, what did I get into? Who is this guy? I thought he was honorable, and now he's so much more shady than I thought. And so I think that was my wake-up call, came real quick. And then really those first few years of marriage were me trying to look in the mirror more honestly and say, I'm not who I was trying to become. I'm not who I thought I was. Why am I really doing this pole dance of things I don't want to be doing? I'm not able to really stand up the way I thought I could. So I had to start to, I think that was ripped off for me very quickly in our marriage of, I want to really be more honest, even though that's far more scary. It's far more vulnerable. I don't know really how to do this, but I want to try to figure out something because it's not working. What I've been pulling from is not working.
And how was that for you in that?
It was definitely a shock, but also I can look back on it now and I'm so grateful, like to echo Chris for the timing, like before our children were here, before, like speaking to the collateral damage of who it impacted. I did wrestle with a lot of just trust and also anger, just feeling
What did I
like,
make a mistake?
did
right?
I, well,
Right.
and honestly, like it was a bit of like, now because I'm in this and you've proven and stated, and I'm trusting the Lord that we are staying in this. And it was this moment of like, man, these are consequences that we're going to have to live with for the rest of our lives together, that this impacts our the rest of our life. And yes, there's healing and restoration and it's come, thank you, Jesus. But like, it just felt so, there was such finality to it. It was like, oh, okay, we can't undo, like this can't be undone. And so now life is forever different. And so getting to a place of accepting that, but I really had to wrestle with, I had put him on a pedestal he didn't ask me to put him on, and so there was a whole lot of my own faith journey with letting the Lord be the one who, is the source of all comfort, the source of all, he can't fill those holes. He's a beautiful, human representation of that most days. But I had to really wrestle in my own spiritual walk and intimacy with the Lord of like, you're it. Like it's me and you, and I think looking back on that, I'm very grateful. So, as hard as it was, to come face to face with that truth so quickly.
Yeah. Well, and there is a grace in it, like you said. I mean, God doesn't want just like a half-hearted version of us or even like a counterfeit of us, right? And so, and unfortunately, like when we sin, we suffer. But yet at the same point, there's something about the gift of that, right? Like when there's death of like the image or the persona or the perfection that we're going to attain, then all of a sudden there's resurrection possible. And so to have that in year one, I mean, there are a lot of marriages that are going to be watching this and are going to be encouraged because they might go like, wow, this is past the point of return, or how do we repair, or this is so damaging. How could we imagine resurrection on the other side of this? We're so scared and lost. And like you said, honesty sometimes is the scariest place to go, but vulnerability is the kryptonite to shame, right? Otherwise, you just wallow in this like just spiral of shame and you really can't come out of that. So when that happened and you started to go, I want to be well, I want to be honest, how was that? And were you able immediately to kind of pinpoint maybe triggers for that in childhood, or was it more like an unfolding?
It was an unfolding, yeah. And I wish we had actual counsel directly. I wish we had gotten into that or had someone in our closer circles. So we had some mentor level friends who counseled us through it. But they were not professional counselors. So I wish I had a few more of the tools that we have now. But over those next few years, it led to doing more specific family of origin work, which was that was the big hinge point. I think that really, I did as much as I could on my own and with kind of advisors here and there, and really started to look at why I felt the way I did underneath the surface. There's something else I'm feeling that's causing me to do things and causing me to just not want to, what's the right word? It's really just if you don't heal from what is wounded you in the past, you're going to bleed on people that didn't cut you. And that's what I could tell was happening. I was kind of shame covered, but also irritable. There's anger that would bubble up for no reason for things that weren't surface level happening.
Right.
And I'd overreact over that. So it was a lot of that. What has cut me in the past? What's wounded me in the past? That when those get brushed like a little finger cut, I'm pulling away and reacting to stuff that shouldn't be that reactive. It shouldn't be that big.
I would say it took about 5 years because we got married when we were 25. I really started pursuing like counseling, which this is a little side, but I think with what we do for a living and with any industry, with life, for a lot of people, I think even now with as much as this is talked about and shared and the people are leading with more vulnerability about getting help, like it felt like a luxury. Like when I'm not busy, then I'll do that instead of prioritizing, no, this is what's best for me, for my husband, for everybody in my life, and prioritizing that wellness. So it took about 5 years for me to really start getting into consistent counseling. And then about 2 years after that, we did our first like marriage intensive together. So it was a process, definitely.
Yeah. It took a while.
And what happens in marriage, as Chris was just saying, like you didn't know this about yourself until you put yourself in a position where there's another human in your life that's so close.
It's like she's holding her ear up to me.
Yeah.
Like she's showing me stuff I didn't know was there.
And in our marriage, and this is the beauty of marriage and God's design for it, is like it's what he uses to help us become whole again. And we believe it happens best in that relationship, that God had Hillary in your life to be that healer. And I know you've brought now through your own journey healing to her as she's walking through her journey. But one of the things that's hard I know it was for me, to look back on was that origin story piece. How was I raised? What were some of the traumas I experienced when I was younger that have caused me to cut off my heart? And that's been the work we've had to do and I've had to bring to the table with Rebekah, was doing similar work of going, man, I just stopped feeling for a long time, cut it off, didn't want to know why I was doing the things I was doing. And in marriage, it exposed there's some more work to do. And she had the patience and grace to help me through that. I got counseling and all of that. I'm curious, for each of you, how is looking back to your story, the way you were raised, the things you experienced, how has that impacted now some of your intelligence about how you connect and relate to one another and where there's some shortfalls? Because for a lot of couples, they haven't taken the time maybe to do that. And when you do, I want them to see what happens when we take the time to look back.
Yeah, the curiosity in looking back is what's key. It's not about looking back to blame or to get more bitter or to get more right about how you were wrong. That's where even just the posture of how you're looking back or why you're going back is the only way for it to be healthy is if you're going back to be curious about why, what is going on or what happened that I'm not sure why it led, but it's led to something that's not letting me get more connected. I'm missing out on connection.
That's
I'm missing out on belonging.
Point. That's a crucial point.
Yeah. So going back, why you're going back to look. So if you're not going back to blame and to point fingers, it's really more being curious about what did I feel, which means there's going to be a difference between the intent of the people around you. Didn't necessarily mean to do that. They didn't mean for your environmental failures is another thing that happens where no one was intentionally doing that to you, but the impact was that it made you feel a certain way. The impact was you felt abandoned. The impact was you felt alone. The impact was, so it depends on what. It doesn't mean you point blame. It means that you can understand, I've just felt that way. No one actually intended for me to feel that way. or to experience that. But that's what it made me.
Yeah.
So then it allows you to kind of pinpoint. For me, it was a lot more loneliness, that I was never actually abandoned. My family was around, and I had a really overall secure family unit. But a lot of the ways our family operated and a lot of the dynamics led me to feel not really seen. And then I was really kind of not sure, a lot of insecurity and a lot of loneliness, because I didn't really know who I was and I didn't really know where to plug in. But on the surface, everything looked fine. So more I understood that, it made it clearer how I've now operated with a whole lot of apathy through my 20s. But then the reason why is because there's a lot of loneliness and fear of more loneliness underneath the surface of how I'm trying to find connection. And then once we got married, it became clear that I've now latched onto her. And as soon as I feel like she is leaning away from me, I am like aggressively chasing her down. I have to stay in connection, because this is the safest and the best thing, and it has to stay that way. And I'm like, I don't want to be alone, and I need you to stay here.
And guess what I do when that happens?
You run.
I'm like, ooh, yeah.
And not just run, but she looks at me and says, "You're scary, and you're not safe."
You're a lot right now.
Yeah.
So then she tells me they're not safe, and now I'm wounded.
Yeah.
Now I'm not only
Yeah.
I have all these narratives of why it's her fault, and she's saying I'm not safe. What do you So
Yeah.
that compounding really quickly, that really is just stemming from, I'm just a lonely little 8-year-old kid who wants to have his best friend with him.
Mm-hmm.
But real quickly, that turns into me being this big, scary grizzly bear, and she's running away from me. And I'm like, no, I actually just want to be friends again. And so that really, some of that
such a good way to
helped a
see
lot,
that.
but it took a lot of me realizing I'm scaring her. And I'm like, no, I'm not. What do you mean?
And I got the beautiful gift of being a witness to Chris's journey through his origin story. That was in our intensive couples work with Bill and Lori Loke.
Yes.
And so I got to sit and watch.
You had done an intensive individually,
Yeah.
and then a few months later was when we did one together, and it turned into me doing my individual work next to her.
Yeah.
And there was this one story, this one kind of vignette that you shared of your childhood and you were older, you were a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and it really encapsulated so much of just the narrative of your origin story and your growing up years. And when I learned this, like, that's been probably one of the most pivotal moments for me in our marriage in the last 10 years.
Wow.
Because when we get into conflict, I see 17-year-old you
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
at the table, not feeling heard, not feeling seen, feeling lonely. And so then I still get triggered in my own ways, and I'm prideful, and sometimes it takes me too long to get to a place of remembering that. But I enter in to the conflict a lot differently when I'm seeing him that way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And realizing, like, this is historical. This is something that, and I don't want to make him feel that way. And that's where I feel like marriage is so redemptive, and we can be such, healers for one another. God allows us that gift, that honor. And that has been huge, huge, and so vulnerable and brave and courageous of him to be willing to do that in front of me.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people, even when you think you're in a really great, communicative, beautiful marriage, that a lot of people come in with too much shame or fear, anxiety. Like, he was courageous to let me witness it.
Yeah. That's how the healing begins, right? Like this, just going to the root, like the root cause of rejection, the root belief that I'm not enough, or I'm not wanted, or I'm not known, or I'm not seen or heard. And to be willing to expose that. And of course, it's the Holy Spirit that allowed that to surface when it did, even in the way that it did.
Yes.
Bill and Lori are the most gentle people to help
Yes.
that come out.
Yes.
Our audience knows a lot about Bill and Lori Loki. I've written about them in almost every book. And Bill, like, we just celebrated his life, when he went to heaven, and just what an impact. I mean, just legacy. And Lori, she's a ninja
Yes.
in trauma and recovery. And So I just can't speak highly enough for even just the providence of God to even have all that happen the way that it did. And when you are able to see 17-year-old version of Chris, the empathy comes automatic. Like the mama in us just can't not just see that like lost, lonely child and be like, I'm going to fight for us, but I'm fighting for you so that we are well, you know? Such
a
a
game
beautiful
changer in the dynamic of a relationship when you've taken the time to unpack each other's stories with curiosity and you understand a key insight like that. It just changes from passion that doesn't have any compassion, you know, to someone who can say, okay, I know how to re-enter this. Hillary, in your journey, when you've looked back at your origin story, and Chris, what have been some lessons you've learned through marriage? You're like, I got to go back. Something's happened early in my life that I'm seeing impact how Chris and I connect with each other.
I definitely emotionally retreat, go kind of onto my island. We like to call it, when I feel overwhelmed, or if we've had and I think some of it is because I spent a lot of my most formative years. I was an only child for 14 years. And my parents had a very transient job. They traveled a ton. They were on tour, actually, doing what I do now, but they were in the seat of band members. So their agency over their calendar and their schedule looked a lot different than our family now. So I was alone a lot. And I feel as much as loneliness is a part of my story, it's also where I retreat when I'm not feeling safe, or if something starts to feel tense and uncomfortable, I have a tendency to I'm just going to go over here, even in the same room, you know?
You had to self-soothe as a child, right? Yeah. So even now, that's safer, right? Like, I know how to do this. This was my survival as a child.
Yeah.
And this is my survival I'm very similar. I have to have my own sacred small space with Jesus. And he's like, but you need to go back and be with,
Yes.
you need to go back and repair with the people in your life. But that is scarier, right? Because you had to learn you didn't have that option.
Right.
And you
it's
have someone to comfort.
Yes. And a big leap of trust to go to re-engage. And I think too, I have had this career that has it's been an incredible, and it's also been a very demanding time. So much of my time, so many months, so many years of my life have been within this band dynamic, and the way that my bandmates communicate, the way that we've learned to communicate, the way that we did it way wrong in the early years. And, there's just all these different, when someone gets really big, like presence or intense, I kind of shrink, which I know is very common for a lot of women, a lot of people. If you grew up around someone, a very demonstrative presence, a lot of times you go one of two ways. Either you meet that or you shrink back. And I kind of took the path of least resistance. And so that was another thing too. When he gets impassioned and excited about something, sometimes my limbic system fully misinterprets that as whoa, you're scary. And it's not. It's passion. It's really excitement, and then sometimes my body just goes, but this feels really unsafe, and so processing that, being able to acknowledge that, I mean, we still,
that's where being able to name it, y'all lay out so perfectly the different ways to be able to flag that and name what's happening before it continues to reactively. Now you're in an argument about something that was totally not an argument, but it's pointing or it's hitting and pushing on stuff that's causing those bigger, really visceral reactions. So that, I think those earlier moments was such a good example of that, where in my mind, I'm just excitedly talking about taking her on a picnic next week. And somehow my excitement for that made her look at me and be like, whoa, you're scary.
That's
and
scary.
like, what?
Picnic sounds scary with a grizzly bear.
Yeah, but if it's a grizzly bear, of course you wouldn't want to go on a picnic with me. But I'm so hurt now. How dare you,
Yeah. That'd be a great title. This podcast. Picnics are scary with a grizzly bear.
Picnics with a grizzly bear.
Yes, our next book. I love it. Or your next book.
Children's book.
But naming those moments of where she's feeling, or me being able to say, if there's anger or if there's shame, and Chip Dot has those giving you the benefits of those words, that helps us get to that opening of, okay, I am feeling quote unquote angry, but it's actually because I am so eager and hopeful for what's about to happen or what I'm dreaming for you. And it sounds and feels like I'm getting angry. I'm actually just really excitedly, it's burning in me what you are going to get to do. And let's talk about that.
Yeah, the intensity.
And that's such a different posture, but it feels surface level can feel like I'm the big scary grizzly bear.
So was this easy for you to name feelings? I know for me, this was a huge journey, but did you have to learn that practice?
It was a very gradual, and it's such a self-awareness where ownership, it's got to start and stop with me, because she can't, she's feeling it her own way and she's naming it her own way. So I have to be able to pause and or reflect in hindsight. Here's why I started to get worked up, or what was I feeling? I don't even know why. You don't figure out why right away, but I can at least go back and go, the part where I started to get mad or feel anger was here.
Yeah.
Why did that happen? I don't know why that's where the turn happened. And then I can start to figure out what that poked on. And usually the more I understand hindsight in my story, the more I can start to recognize it was a connection issue, or it was me feeling like as soon as I brought this up, you turned away from me. Physically, you started to hug your pillow. That's when I felt like this, I'm losing you.
Yeah.
I'm losing you. Now I'm going to get bigger. Now I'm going to get bigger. So those little, the more I study myself, the more I can have, and having those little look at those maps or those word choices of like, it's how we're trying to teach our kids now. Just look at this, look at the smiley faces and point to which one you're feeling after school, because you don't always come home from school and be able to tell us what you're feeling, but you might be able to point at it. So even that kind of level is what I had to start with of, I just need, give me 5 words to choose and I'll pick the one that I think I'm feeling. And then we can figure out why or what's going on, but we can't just get to the root right away. I got to start on the top here.
Cover it.
Yeah.
That's what I love about Chip Dodd's approach. We talk about that in our chapter, talking about feeling your feelings and how important that is. That was a long journey for me, but he lays out just these 8, which made it feel manageable and helped us to start to understand what that language, how to do it. But I want men to hear what you're saying here, because I think for us, we move past what you just said was critical to your time of naming this. It's reflection time. It's pausing long enough. Maybe it's early in the morning, or it's after you've had this argument, you're driving in your car, and you've got to invite God in to help you with this. Holy Spirit, help me to see, like, what did I do here? What happened? It takes time and energy. Our culture doesn't want us to take time and energy on anything like this.
Or when I take that time, I end up just recycling through all the ways I was right and she was wrong, or all the ways I'm the victim of how. Why did she call me a grizzly bear? She shouldn't have. And it's like, well, no, that's not the reflective time that's productive. It's there's more ownership time that needs to come through that. And I know for me, what Holy Spirit has continually brought me back to, and really Jesus has done this with me, is I take the prayers of the Psalms and I take, search me, O God, test me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any offensive way in me. I kind of want to fly through that and get to the lead me in the way everlasting. Like, give me a highlight reel, give me the summary bullet points of what's wrong with me. Sure. Now let's go to the lead me part. And he's always inviting me to be like, no, actually all there is the sitting with me, the posture of just be with me and let me know you. Search me and know me, God. He just wants me to sit with him there. That's really all there is. I don't need to just get through that to go and do some other path. He just wants that time with me. And then through that, then he helps me understand myself more. He helps me understand how to relate and be in connection more healthily. But I'm always trying to fly through that. And
the beauty that comes from that is that our daughters and I are the beneficiaries of that work, of that time. Of that intimacy with Jesus. And so it's that really just, it benefits and blesses everyone. Everyone.
Absolutely.
But it helps me with that agenda, because I want a task and I want to figure it out and I want to get better. And that's helpful to an extent. And then there's the releasing and the submission part where I have to just sit and be still with him. I have to sit and listen and actually allow him some time to maybe say something and point out what's actually wrong. Not just tell him, search me, seek me, search me, search, and now let's do. He's like, whoa, just pause,
slow down,
son. Like, You're not even letting me get a word in.
Yeah.
Of course you're not going to get better at this because you're not even listening. So.
Yeah. We talk early in the book about the blame game, and I think that's kind of what you're saying. It's like we're not looking back to blame. We're not feeling our feelings to then keep recycling the blame, but more going, search me, show. I think my question a lot, even lately, I mean, still there. I mean, every season of life, like there are new little like spots that just get kind of pushed, and you're like, I didn't know that was there. Thought we nailed that in our 40s, but now here we are. Every season, every change, every shift brings new challenge. While the change is good and exciting and often like something we want, it still brings some new version of a challenge that can bring up something that we didn't even think was a thing.
Yeah.
It happened with our kids in each season that they were, and it's happened with us almost every decade of like, oh, maybe the trigger might be work, or it might be schedule, or it might just be that we're launching kids and we don't know how to do this well, like whatever those insecurities that might kind of be like dormant somehow find their way. And so even that blame can still, no matter how much we've done, very faithful, and the Lord has been so kind, can still kind of sneak in there. And I have found for me, they usually sneak in when the margin is lost.
Yeah.
Like there isn't that pause, that sitting, that meditating on the word that illuminates the desires and motives, intentions of the heart, right? And so just turning from that blame back to God, what is it that you want me to know about you? and therefore in knowing that about you, usually it reveals something you want me to know about me, like what's unwell here. This book has been written, and even since it's been written, there's been a couple key moments this spring in particular that I have had to face and confront, like a reaction that's coming out of me that I maybe hadn't had to deal with. And I think what's even about your story of your first year is like, I've always asked the Lord, will you bring to the surface or expose or reveal or illuminate when you're ready to heal? Like, would you do it in your perfect timing and love?
Yes.
And even that, like maybe he just knows like we can't handle it all at once.
Yeah.
And so there's just these like micro, like, healing moments where all of a sudden we're exposed to another side of like, oh, there was that, like, there's still something there that and now just the grace is though, because we have done this and we're used to being humbled, and going and seeking the Lord again. It's not threatening or intimidating or shame-filled. It's just more like, Lord, thank you, show me. And then now I'm able to, with Gabe, going like, there's something there.
Yeah.
Like I really want to get to the root of going deeper as to, I didn't even know this was something that was still kind of like, maybe it's like debris, it's just like a little residue that's still, yes.
Yes.
How does it look like now? Because I mean, are you still tempted to just go to the closet or whatever your place is? Because I know I am. And so I'm like hearing you going like, okay, now what does that look like?
Yes.
After years of work and intensives?
Well, what you said that just really convicted my heart, and it's so true, is the margin. It's when the margins are non-existent. That's when everything just
Gets harder.
gets harder. It's like the confusion bubble over your head in a cartoon or a comic strip. It's like that is what happens, and then I just am like, then I'm just frozen. So finding ways to keep that margin and to make sure that we're both doing the things that we need to do in our daily individual
rhythms, and like you've helped with a lot with us learning how to keep that and to build that, but then sustain that.
Yes, but I feel like very similar in a place that wasn't tender. It'll get tender again, and there have been conversations even since like what happened in our first year. We'll have to circle back, and there have been really beautiful moments of like watching Chris walk through a friend going through their own version of that with their family, and watching Chris do that. So much healing came because I knew not only had he proven over the years his work and his heart towards healing, but then watching him walk with someone through a similar situation and be such a pivotal cornerstone part of the journey for that person.
It's beautiful.
So much healing came. I mean, it was there was just this
Even
thing
in ways
that
we
broke
didn't know
off.
you needed.
This thing
Yeah.
that broke off that I was just like, Jesus, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you that I'm seeing him clearer now,
Mhm.
because he had been pursuing that and showing up and consistent. And like, there was something, just scales on my eyes.
Right.
And watching that all happen was just,
Hmm.
we've never been the same since.
Hmm.
But it also took years. And
Right.
And there's
that's okay.
there's still those intersections. One of my buddies said it the other day when I brought it up. He's like, "This is an intersection for you guys where you consistently come back to this spot and have contention here." And it's not that we aren't progressing through and improving and getting better. And it's just that there's some cyclical things that I
Yes.
would love to say I checked it off the list of learn, but then there's this new version of the same thing that always gets under my skin. And it's part of that is on my side. Part of it's because that's just that's one of her things that kind of gets to me. And I need to learn how to continually come back to how I actually want to show up for her in that and not just act like I have it figured out.
Yeah.
So that I think like that's for me, that's a
real
constant.
great image.
Yeah.
To
Circling the
visualize
mountain.
it.
I do. I use that same illustration just this week with someone. I was like, it's like there's beauty and repair, and there's repentance and repair. But and I think we have come far.
And you're climbing up.
But
you're getting high.
you're circling. But it might feel like you don't really. It seems like it's still a linear line when you're looking at one side of that mountain. But yet there is growth, there is healing, our kids will testify to that sometimes, and we're like, we just had a stupid fight. Why are we, what?
I know.
You know, like a month ago, we're like, we've got a marriage book coming out. What are we doing?
You're not allowed to fight anymore. You can't.
Then that's the point. The fight is for us, and the fight is that the fight doesn't end, right? Like there's always a target on the back of a believer who's in covenant, who wants to raise a generational line who fear God.
Yeah,
Like that's swimming upstream the whole time.
absolutely.
So, what are some of the ways that you guys keep fighting for your marriage? You mentioned rhythms. Like, are there some things you've learned now, 13 years in, that you could encourage some other couples with? Like, hey, here's a few of our best practices that help us
Yes.
keep this thing, energized, keep us feeling healthy, aligned, unified.
Yeah. I think, well, I know at least a broad one is it's super helpful for me when she can say what she needs in moments of communication, not just in the literal things to do on the to-do list, but when she's able to say, I think I need to process that. And I've seen that work really well for my side. If I can get ahead of wanting to talk through something, and usually it's stuff that has to do nothing directly with her, something I want to process out loud or something I want to think about or figure out how I'm feeling about something. It's really helpful if I can say, hey, can we try to chat later? I'm thinking about this and I'd love to figure something out, versus waiting until we just happen to have a moment. And then all of a sudden we're 5 minutes into a 2-hour discourse that we don't have 2 hours for. So now we're trying to fly through.
Yeah, on the commute to things, right?
Yeah, and just this is important, and I do want to
This is
talk about
bigger
this,
than
but
we
we don't
realize.
have time for this right now, and we gotta downshift now.
Yeah.
And that's usually at least one of us feels like you just slammed on the brakes and we got smashed into the windshield.
We just started going.
Yeah, it's so that's
really
if I can, I'm trying really hard now to not only remind her of hey, let me know when you need those moments as best you can, but then also when I feel those come on and I'm like, oh, she's getting into something she wasn't planning on getting into. I don't have capacity for this right now. We don't have time for it, but how can I keep this from getting ugly or getting mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to just snap
Being
down
able
at
to
her.
just pause in the moment and go, we're going to figure this out.
Hey, I care about this so much.
He literally said that before we left the house.
I really need to go to the bathroom. Can I just go to the bathroom and then we can keep, or even just finding ways to name, which is just a self-awareness thing. I feel like that on both sides of the street. I love when she can help me by saying that. And I'm really trying to own, I think I got to process what I'm feeling about my parents. And I need to we need to carve out some time. I don't know when. It's not a code red, but I'd love to chat this week.
That is so good. The meeting before the meeting is essential.
Yeah.
And then that alert and that reminder is so essential.
Yeah.
I just love that. I think that definitely can keep things, because I think most of the fights come in the transitions, like when you're kind of
Or accidental.
or missed expectations.
Yes.
You're like, okay, and you're like, I thought this was gonna be a quick, and then you're like, no, I need to really
I'm
unpack.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just trying to keep the temperature, calm because when it doesn't, when it escalates, my brain doesn't fire right.
You can't control it. There's
You know
still
what I mean?
moments where it happens.
For sure. But trying to be more mindful of that. And then for me, it's being held accountable, holding myself accountable, asking Chris to hold me accountable, to follow back up,
to return.
because I'm like, see ya.
You're like, I'll be in my closet for a minute. Yes, that's a big one.
And so making sure that there's just follow through, because he really does feel valued and I think respected when that takes place. And when I initiate that, which I frankly don't do well a lot of the time. And so it's a big piece
And
of
now
my
we
work.
have that on film.
You know, it's a big piece of my work. It is.
We'll put that in the show notes for Chris to later look at and point out.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, thank you for opening up about your relationship. It's not always easy to talk publicly about our worst moments, and yet you so bravely do, and yet that's how the world heals.
Yeah.
Is they hear people who've walked through things where God's shown up, where they've done work, where they've got a person in their life that's walked with them. And I hope that encourages so many couples that are in the middle of their mess right now, and they're like, I don't know how we're going to walk through this or where this is going to go, to realize that there's a story being told, but it's going to require a fight. And that's what you've shown today, is like, you can't give up. So let's stay in it. And when we do stay in it, there's something more beautiful that comes.
Yeah, and it's not like it's ending, right? Like if marriage just stopped being a challenge, or like the whole thing that makes it work, like the energy, it is the friction, right? Like you are supposed to be sharpening one another, and that's painful sometimes. It's like that sanding off those rough edges doesn't end, but that was God's intention, right? He's like, you're going to have trouble, but take heart. I've overcome. I'm going to be there for you through the whole thing. The thing you said at the beginning, Chris, I just want to kind of put an exclamation point on, especially when we talk origin. I think the misnomer in this is so common, to look back and then blame, and to just like whoever it was that said anything, and just we think this is like kind of beat up our parents or something. Like, no, that is not at all. I think we even dedicate this book to both of our parents who fought for their marriages for over 50 years. And did they get everything great? No. I mean, but they gave us what they had. They gave us more than they got. And praise God for that, right? And how that's helped us, even in looking back, is to still like to bless them, to thank the Lord, like it was His will for us to be born into that family. I don't want my heart to grow bitter or unforgiving or resentful to a generational line behind me, because that's just going to continue. You know, then my kids are going to look at us and be like, y'all are the worst, you know? Like we got to bless up if we have the freedom to bless down.
That's right.
And then also just this idea of just repair quickly.
Yeah.
I think that's the other like punctuation, that if you are like us and you need a little space, and I have a little introvert radar that goes off. It's like everything's escalated. I need to know, like, Lord, help me know how to respond. Commit and build trust by saying, yes, we are going to come back at this time in this way somehow. Otherwise, that avoidant dance doesn't ever heal.
Yeah. Well, thank you, guys. We love you. I'm excited to be friendship and life with you.
Yes.
It's fun.
Love you
Thanks.
guys.
Thank you.